You ever wondered how cars did it back then? Like 50 years ago? 100 years ago? Today we're going to go over three different vehicles. One that is 3 years old, my 2022 Ford Ranger. One that is 53 years old, my 1972 Mustang Mach 1. And a 1912 Model T. I don't have a Model T. I want to do 50 years between the three, but the difference between the early Model Ts, around 1908 to 1912, and the 1913 to 1927 models is pretty significant, mostly due to the fact that around 1913 to 14 is when Ford really started using the assembly line. So let's start with the heart of the car, the motor. My 2022 Ford Ranger has a turbocharged 2.3-liter four-cylinder at 270 horsepower. My 1972 Mustang has a naturally aspirated 351 Cleveland, around 5.8 liters. Stock, it had 275 horsepower. The Model T had a 2.9 inline-4 at 20 horsepower. The Ranger's motor has a compression ratio of 10 to 1 and takes 87 octane, well-refined gasoline. The Mustang has a ratio of 9.3 to 1 and takes 93 ultra-refined gasoline. The 1912 Model T took around 40 to 60 octane crude gasoline. Though the Ranger has a higher compression ratio, it's still able to run an 87 octane due to it having direct port injection, knock sensors, and computers to manage knock automatically. The Mustang has to use 93 octane due to its lack of those sensors and computers. It has manifold injection, where a carburetor would squirt gas into the intake manifold, where intake valves would open into the necessary cylinder to allow gasoline to be sucked in on the downstroke. There was less room for error with knock with the Mustang's motor. Knock is when in a given cylinder, fuel combusts prior to reaching top dead center, or when the combustion chamber is at its smallest. In the Model T, the only fuel available was crude gasoline, basically brought from a distillery and put directly in the car. So the car had to have a super low compression ratio. The gas at the time would have exploded at anything higher. So that's gas. Now for spark. The Ranger uses 4 fine wire iridium spark plugs, offering high precision and a very lengthy life, usually well over 60,000 miles. The Mustang uses 8 spark plugs, which used to last about 10,000 miles. The Model T also used 4. They only lasted about 2,000 miles though, if you were lucky. Realistically, due to dusty roads and garbage fuel, they often lasted significantly less than that, but drivers would more often than not remove and clean the plugs than replace them altogether. The 2022 Ford Ranger used an ECU, battery, and alternator to give spark to whichever necessary cylinder. The Ranger has individual coils mounted to each spark plug that transform the alternator/battery generated power to the thousands of volts necessary to cause spark. The 1972 Mustang also uses a battery and alternator, but didn't have an ECU. Instead, it used something called a distributor. The distributor was geared to the camshaft, so when the camshaft spun, the distributor would spin, allowing it to send an electrical current to the necessary cylinder. There's one blaster coil that transforms the around 13 volts from the alternator into the thousands of volts needed to create the spark. The Model T used a magneto to create electricity. 16 magnets attached directly to the flywheel would create electricity, sending a current to the trembler coil, which would increase the voltage. From here, it would go to a manually adjusted timer, which would send spark to the necessary cylinder. So that's why we power the motor. The Ranger's transmission is a 10-speed automatic. The Mustang is a 3-speed automatic. I know it sucks, I'm saving for a T5 swap. And the Model T used a 2-speed planetary gearbox. The 10-speed has 10 gears, of which the truck's transmission control module, or TCM, told it to shift through. The Mustang doesn't have a TCM, so it uses a throttle valve to tell the transmission if there's heavy or light throttle, a governor that senses vehicle speed, and hydraulic valves, which when speed and throttle position reach the right balance, pressure shifts to the next clutch pack, automatically changing gears. The Model T only had 2 manual gears, high and low. The Model T didn't have a normal shifter either. You had a pedal and a lever. The lever kept either the clutch engaged or the parking brake engaged. The leftmost pedal engaged low gear. Once you got up to speed, you'd release the low gear pedal and high gear would engage. The middle pedal was the reverse gear. And completely contrary to today, the rightmost pedal was the brake. So that's the transmissions. Onto the brakes. The Ranger uses 4-wheel disc brakes with an anti-lock braking system, which prevents the wheels from locking up when a driver slams on the brakes. This prevents skidding and sliding. The Mustang used 2 disc brakes up front and 2 drum brakes in the back. The Model T used only rear brakes and actually housed them in the transmission. Now steering. The Ranger uses power steering with electronic assists. The Mustang just had power steering, no assists. Power steering is how the car hydraulically makes it significantly easier to turn the steering wheel, utilizing what's called a steering box. The Model T didn't have power steering. In fact, it didn't even use gears, an entirely manual system that relied on how much you could bench or curl. Each of these 3 cars actually uses almost the same suspension system, leaf springs, a long piece of grounded metal that flexes to dampen road vibrations and bumps. That being said, only the Model T exclusively used leaf springs. The Mustang used coils in the front and leaf springs in the back, and shock absorbers all around. The Model T didn't have any shock absorbers. The Ranger used a combination of leaf springs in the back and coilovers in the front. There's shock absorbers in the back, with the coilovers doing the absorbing and supporting of the vehicle in the front. Between the three, you would absolutely feel the difference in the evolution. Think about it like this. If you're crossing train tracks in a Model T, you better slow down or you'll literally be launched out of the car. The Mustang, you better slow down or something will sound really expensive. And in the Ranger, specifically in my Ranger with the Fox 2.5 suspension, I speed up over train tracks. On to safety and comfort. The Ranger has full airbags with crumple zones, full climate control, an awesome sound system, and driver assists. The Mustang had seatbelts, and if optioned, it could have AC. Mine had AC until I ripped it out. Now the Model T had no safety features. No seatbelts, no airbags. On some models, you didn't even get a roof. But I'm not going to lie. The Model T's driver's seat looks like something fit for a king. I mean, look at this thing. Today it doesn't even compare. Each of these cars represents something different in American culture. The Model T being specifically made to be affordable and available to everyone. It literally got cheaper over time. The Mustang being made to capture that raw American muscle spirit. And the Ranger to be a practical, everyday truck meant to work and be comfortable at the same time. But I hope you were able to see how far we've come, from the Model T all the way up to the Ford Ranger. If you all have any questions, please ask below. I'll respond to all of them. If you liked, please leave a like, and if you want to see more like this, subscribe. Thanks for watching.